Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to Visionary Pulse, a segment that focuses on chatting to game changers and change makers. Tonight is certainly no different as we chat to one such visionary game changer and change maker. We say a very good evening and a warm welcome, Assalamu alaikum, to Dr. Zubeda Dangor, who is the founding and executive director of the Nissa Institute of Women's Development. Dr. Dangor is a clinical psychologist with a PhD in psychology. Her PhD thesis has been published into a book entitled Life After Abuse, an exploration of women's strategies for overcoming abuse. She also published a chapter in the book, Women's Perspective on the Solution-Focused Approach, International Applications and Interventions, entitled Empowering Women Survivors of Domestic Violence. Using SFBT lens, experiences of a Muslim woman practitioner, Zubeda was instrumental in initiating the National Centre movement of South Africa as well, and serves as the head of the executive of NSM of South Africa. Dr. Zubeda, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for joining me on Visionary Pulse. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on my show.
Alaikum salam, Farzana. Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Dangor, you have dedicated your career to supporting women affected by gender-based violence, which is very, very rife in our communities right now. What first inspired you to pursue this path, and what continues to motivate you today?
So, basically what happened is after I graduated, I went to work for the Department of Health in Lenasia, actually. And what happened was I started seeing more and more women who presented as being depressed. And I thought this was really very strange. One woman after another presented with depression. And so I decided to investigate this further. And on trying to really analyze what was going on, I found that most of the women who told me that they were depressed were in fact experiencing some kind of intimate partner violence.
Okay.
And so that resulted in us starting community groups. And we found at one session where we ran a workshop that from 50 women, 40 of them said to us that they were abused. And that really got me thinking. And on the basis of that, I decided to focus on studying further, looking at domestic violence outside of the country. Then came back and started, I worked for the department, for the UNISA Health Psychology Unit. And after 3 years of being there, decided to start the Nissa Institute.
So this started in what year, Dr. Dangor?
We're talking, Nissa is now 33 years old.
It's incredible. And still running so strong.
We are running very strongly because the issue of gender-based violence is a phenomenal problem in our community, but in our country. You know that gender-based violence is one of the highest global statistics in the world from South Africa. It's absolutely shocking.
But that being said, Dr. Dangor, I'm saying Nissa is still running strong because there's been so many shelters that has been closing down, because there's simply no funding.
Well, we had to close last year for a period of 6 months, simply because the department, the Gauteng Department of Social Development, didn't fund us. And eventually in November last year, they came back and decided to fund us because they were not reaching their performance targets.
Okay.
So that wasn't the real reason they should do this.
No, absolutely not.
And this is hugely problematic. As a matter of fact, as we stand here today, we haven't received our funding for the 2026 financial year, which started in April.
My word.
So compared to many of the other provinces, Gauteng is probably one of the worst provinces when it comes to not only gender-based violence, but generally vulnerable communities. Many, many NPOs haven't received their funding and are shutting their doors. And this is hugely problematic because when a woman knocks on your door, we don't have the heart to say to her, well, the Gauteng department hasn't funded us, so please go back and get killed. This is completely unacceptable at a community level, at the level of government.
It is really shocking, and especially since tonight's Women's Month, we're talking about such a touching topic. It's rife, like you said. It's not only in communities anymore. It's world over where this is becoming like a pandemic now.
Absolutely. It has been a pandemic even before COVID, but only recognized afterwards.
Now.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dangor, as the founding and executive director of Nissa Institute of Women's Development, what has been your proudest achievement over the years?
So I think that our proudest achievement is that we persevered and we survived for 33 years with all the difficulties that we go through in terms of resource allocation, and that we still offer the service. And I think that that's probably one of our most outstanding achievements, together with the fact that we started the National Shelter Movement in 2008, and that is going very strong, and that's a national project where we have over 100 shelters in the country that are affiliated to us. Okay. And we do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of the shelters.
Okay.
And then I think the final one that I'd like to talk about is the establishment of our 24-hour helpline.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So the helpline is not a regular counseling helpline. It's a helpline that assists women in placing them at shelters.
Oh, okay.
This was started during COVID and continues to date.
Okay, so obviously should a woman be getting abused and she needs a shelter, that's what the 24-hour helpline is for?
Yes, so they can call the helpline. We have a flyer here that you might want to flag later on, which gives details on how women can reach the helpline.
Okay. Okay, so Dr. Dangor, your book, Life After Abuse, explores how women overcome abuse. What are some of the most powerful lessons you learned?
It's really important that they ask for help as soon as they realize that things are not going well within their intimate relationships. That's a fundamental thing. And then I believe that it's also important for women to learn to advocate for themselves. Women are too afraid, they're too ashamed to reach out. And I think it's really important to realize that asking for help is in fact a sign of strength and not weakness. But because women are often shamed and communities tend to push gender-based violence under the carpet, it makes it harder for women to come out and say, I need help because I'm abused.
Absolutely, and that shouldn't be the case, right?
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Dangor, you have helped establish shelters for women and children escaping violence. What are the greatest challenges these shelters face in South Africa today? And how can communities come together to help? Because it's not a my problem, it's a we problem.
Absolutely. Gender-based violence is not a woman's problem, it's a societal problem. And it's critical that every person take some responsibility in this regard. So you can't operate as a bystander. If you know that your neighbor is being abused, you can't say that's not my business. It's very important that you actually go and ask the person if they need help, if there's something that you might be able to do. I think also that it's really important that communities are become more vociferous, that they also work towards assisting organizations that are doing this kind of work. Because, like I said, it's not an individual problem, it's a societal problem.
Absolutely.
And we need to be able to work together as communities, as individuals, as families. You need to support women that are going through this problem.
Definitely. And Dr. Dangor, I think, we need to also establish that we can't, shun away from saying it's not my problem. If your neighbor, like you're saying, is getting abused, it's not my problem. I'm not getting involved. Why do you think, like you've been with Nissa for over 33 years now, you've seen abuse like staring at you in the face. Why is it that in certain communities, abuse is shoved under the carpet like that?
So I think generally in communities it's shoved under the carpet, but I think that people are embarrassed. They feel ashamed if, somebody from their family says that they come from an abusive relationship. But in fact, it shouldn't be, because if you have cancer or any other kind of medical problem, you would tell people that, I have this illness, I am being treated, make dua for me. Exactly. Which is really important. And so in the same way, one needs to change the mindset of our communities, that there's no shame if a woman from your family or your neighborhood or your friend comes from an abusive relationship. We need to be there to support them, to kind of offer some kind of help. Whether that means asking her if she needs anything,
Yes.
asking her if she needs to be taken to the police station, if she needs any medical assistance, if she needs to be referred to an organization for help. So there are various ways in which one can do
One
that.
can assist, yes.
But standing by is
And doing
actually
nothing.
really pathetic.
Absolutely, and I think, with our communities, more parents need to realize. I think it's more important that our parents and many of the viewers that are currently watching realize that a divorced daughter is better than a dead daughter.
Absolutely. And there are so many women being killed in our country. Like I said, we're the global capital for femicide. And this is really a problem because not all of the women who die make it to the media.
No.
So there's so many
No.
women, even in our own
Countless.
communities, that we don't know of. And sometimes families are too ashamed to come forward and seek help. But the consequence of that is you're leaving children totally devastated.
Exactly, and the perpetrator gets to walk free.
Absolutely.
And I always say, Dr. Dangor, and I think you will agree with me on this, if your child or your relative or your neighbor is going through something and they are scared to come forward, remember the shame is not on the person that's getting abused. The shame needs to fall on the abuser. That mindset needs to shift, that I'm going to now call you out because you are an abuser. You are abusing me behind closed doors, and then, like a typical narcissist, portraying this total different facade to the communities out there. The shame doesn't fall on me, the shame falls on you. And I think the moment we change that mindset, I think so many more women will be saved.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really a tragic problem, that we allow this to happen. We have a responsibility as a community.
Yes, 100%.
And we should be taking this much more seriously than we have been up to now.
But it's not, because like you said, it's a stigma, it's the shame, it's, oh no, I don't want my daughter or neighbor or cousin or friend to be recognized as someone that's getting abused because she's probably seen as weak, or she's got this facade to maintain in the outside world, in the public eye. But it's none of that. Your
It's none
health and
of that.
well-being comes first and of utmost priority. People need to
Absolutely.
understand that. Like I've said, the shame needs to fall on the perpetrator. The shame needs to fall on the abuser. They need to be ousted for what they are doing behind closed doors. But yet that's not happening, and it's giving them the upper hand to say, look, I can continue. If it's not you, you get away scot-free, but then it's my next victim.
And I think that in men's forums, in the masjids, this needs to be talked about much more vociferously. That, coming from an Islamic background, we don't need to tolerate this.
No. Nowhere does it say that tolerating it is now glorified, and that's what it's made to be.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of men cover up for their buddies instead of actually holding them accountable and saying, you shouldn't do this. Or if the marriage isn't working, then separate rather.
Rather separate, 100%. 100%. So, Dr. Dangor, you contributed to the development of South Africa's National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide as well. How do you assess the country's progress, and where do you believe more urgent action is needed? Like we just spoken, it's like really bad.
So the strategic plan is a 10-year plan, of which 5 years have passed.
Already?
Yes, and we have just, there's a report that's been completed about the 5 years. And some of the information from the report is indicating that government isn't really taking this seriously, even in terms of reporting. The interministerial committee itself needs to take much more responsibility in terms of their reporting on issues of gender-based violence. There isn't a lot of communities actually still don't know what the National Strategic Plan is. And this is really problematic because it has to filter down. And this hasn't happened because funding hasn't been sufficiently available for this to happen. Then, we also haven't had our National Gender-Based Council put in place. And the problem with that is that government didn't consult sufficiently and then went ahead and passed a law on the Gender-Based Violence Council already. So people are upset that government has gone about it in this way. And so now things are on hold for the moment. We're not sure where this is going to. And I think that this stop-start and piecemeal approach doesn't actually help the
Not
issue
at
of
all,
gender-based
not at all.
violence. And the president, I think, every now and then passes some kind of resolution, like at the end of November last year during the G20, he indicated or declared the GBV as a national disaster. But what was the consequence of that? There's no tangible results from that. And this is where it becomes
to see the
hugely
change.
problematic. So we need to turn policy into implementation. And we're very good at developing policies, but we're very poor at turning those policies into a level of implementation on gender-based violence.
So, Dr. Dangor, we're going to digress a bit before we go on to, mental health and all of that. I want you to talk about what exactly Nissa does. Because, like you said, you're in existence for 33 years. Nobody really knows. Okay, it's a women's shelter, but behind the scenes, I want people to know about the skills development you're doing. Should a woman come there abused, what is it that Nissa does for an abused woman? Because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, but not many people know.
Okay, so Nissa runs a number of different programs. We run programs in schools, and those are basically to address the issue of prevention so that younger people understand what gender-based violence is and try to seek help at a much earlier age, which is really critically important. Then we run training. So we train people from communities. We run training programs for students from universities at honors and master's levels, as well as people from the community that are interested in doing counseling, introduction to counseling programs. So we run those type of programs. We also run a range of other peer programs for young people to understand gender-based violence so that they can support their fellow friends in schools to be able to assist or refer them if they find that they are experiencing any kind of abuse. Aside from that, we run a huge shelter service for 22 women and their children. And what that includes is you offer them food, 3 meals a day. You offer them counseling and psychosocial services, from individual counseling to group counseling services. You also get the community involved. So in terms of skills development, women are offered opportunity to do computer courses. If they want to study, we would assist in trying to give them that opportunity. Sometimes women need to learn driving, and so we would offer them driving courses so that they might be able to drive themselves to work where it's appropriate.
Yes.
In other opportunities, we also do talk to employers to be able to employ women that come to our shelter. In addition to that, we place women, their children in schools. We develop relationships with the schools so that the children at the shelter, even though they come from varying areas, they're not all from one particular area, so that the children don't miss out on schools. We run programs at the shelter for younger children, and those continue on a regular basis. In addition to that, you would help women that need say passport or IDs and don't have them. We would actually assist with those kinds of things. We also assist legally. We link very much with an organization called Fasken Martinau, and they come in and actually do legal work with the clients.
Oh, wow, okay.
In addition to other legal services in the country. So we would offer that service. And then depending on any specific need that comes up, we may link with other institutions to be able to offer women's services. Those are just some of the services that we offer.
It's so vast, like I said, because I know what the shelter stands for. There's so much that you do. Moving on to the next thing, why I wanted you to first highlight exactly what Nissa does, because this is so important. You are having an event on the 29th of August to raise funds. It's so important for viewers to be able to attest that, look, should I be attending this event, this is where my money is going to be going. So please tell us a bit more about the event.
So the event is on the 29th, on the 30th of August, as you've pointed out, and it will take place at Balmoral Gardens. And thank you to the owners of Balmoral Gardens who have very, very generously donated the whole venue completely pro deo to Nissa and the National Shelter Movement. And so it's going to be a luncheon. We're going to have some prominent speakers. We're in the process of talking to people about who would come and speak. So, you can watch the media for who those people will be. We will have an auction as well. In addition to that, we're going to have stalls that people can apply for if you're interested, so that we make it a truly community event.
Exactly, and a memorable event at that, for families to come together. But while you're doing that, you're benefiting a shelter that is really doing the greater good for all the women out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So should anyone want tickets, obviously they can contact Nissa?
Yes, they can contact Nissa. We have a flyer that you can put on, which indicates exactly, who they can contact. Okay. And we look forward to people contacting us and supporting us, because this is a very good cause that often doesn't get the support it needs.
Absolutely. And like you said, so many times, and I've known you for so long, and I know a lot of times you're digging deep into your own pocket to sometimes assist. And it's not an easy feat. So these kind of events are so important for everyone to come together and support. And, in doing so, like you said, now you've implemented so many new things to Nissa, which is incredible to hear. So it's only growing the shelter movement, and it's growing, and for women to come out there to say, look, there is some place that I can go to. Like you said,
absolutely,
if somebody is in a problem, they got to call your helpline and see which is the closest shelter to them. Because your shelter doesn't only take in the woman that's getting abused, it takes the kids in as well. Should
yes.
the kids be of a certain age, it's taking the kids in as well. It's looking after a unit that was exposed to this abuse.
Absolutely.
Which is truly commendable, Dr. Dangor.
And in addition to that, we sometimes also, reunify families. Sometimes families, they disown their daughters because they married somebody in particular. So we've often found ourselves reunifying families, and those are really pretty memorable moments.
And that is so heart-rending to hear. So Dr. Dangor, I want to wish you all the best for your event. But before you leave us, if you could leave one lasting message for the next generation of psychologists, activists, and community leaders committed to making a difference to GBV, what would that be?
So I think I would start by saying that I'd like to acknowledge firstly and applaud all those health workers, community workers, volunteers, even the CPFs in our communities that are really active in helping. And none of them, often most of them don't get paid for the time that they give. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to ask them to please persevere, because these issues are not easy. It's not a once-off event that you forget. So people need to persevere, because in the long run, you're still saving lives and helping women and children of the next generation. And I think that what's really important about this is that we can't stop doing what we do.
Exactly.
We have to continue. And so I would ask people to please make sure that if your heart is in the right place, you can always come and support us and support survivors of gender-based violence.
Absolutely, very well said. Dr. Dangor, thank you so much for joining me on Visionary Paths. It has been an honor and a privilege to chat to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting us, Farzana.
It's only a pleasure. So that was Dr. Zubeda Dangor. Join me, Farzana Mayet, next week as I chat to another visionary game changer and change maker. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.